Hi, welcome to Real Talk with Miss Brenda. I'm Miss Brenda, and today I have a very special person here with me. This is my husband, Jeff Spahn, and we are here today to talk about the Lovelady Center. And of course, we've been married for oodles and oodles of years, longer than we need to think about. But right from the get go, Jeff was with me at the center. He always says it was my calling, not his. But you know what? I don't believe that the Lord calls a woman or a man if he doesn't call their spouse too. Without Jeff, I'm not sure exactly how I would have pulled off the initial things that had to be done. I said, Jeff, I think this is what the Lord wants. And very few men would have just jumped in there and helped, but he did. And he went and talked with the people. He helped do the contracts. And then for the first maybe 5 or 6 years, he was right there. You know, I didn't know that we had chiller instead of a water heater. I didn't know anything like that. I didn't know that how we had these great big things when I'm used to a home. And you know what? I'm glad I didn't know. Had I known, I'm not positive we would have been there because it was so scary and it was so much to learn. And Jeff was bright enough to keep some guys that had worked at the hospital before we came, and they helped us so much, and they taught him. So as he moved on to other things, he had to pass the baton and teach others exactly what's there. And now, they told us, this is just something you need to know. They told us that our, not chiller, but another one of those big things would be gone within 2 or 3 years. And it was going to cost these hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace. And I thought, oh my God, what are we going to do? And you know what? He worked and he glued this thing back together over and over again till we just now had to replace it. A lot of glue went into the place, but I am very thankful that Jeff was there. And I'm going to tell you something else. Very few men, you go and say, listen, Jeff, I think the Lord wants us to move these 40 women into our home. Very few men would say, okay. But he did. He answered the call just as I did. So, Jeff, just as I always say to everybody, I'm so glad to have you here. I see you every day, every night, every morning, and yet I'm so glad to have you here today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, hon.
Yeah, well, good. Jeff is from California. I always say the real nuts and flakes come from California. If you're from California, don't listen to that. But some of the best people I know, some of the most congenial people I know, is just from California. So that's a great thing. One other thing that you might ought to know, is Jeff. Jeff is also very special in that he lost his son. He had a very special son named Jason. We all loved him so much. And without Jason, he did all of our tech work. And, in his 20s, you never expect someone to pass away. And Jason passed away from pneumonia, if you can believe it, in this day and age. He passed away. And that is when Jeff left the center. He about had to. And that's when we were all scrambling around trying to find out passwords and stuff that we didn't even know. So that also has had such an impact on our lives. So, Jeff, you're here.
I am.
The center is here. And just what do you have to say about it?
I say that when you think you've done enough for God, God just moves you to another level.
That is exactly right.
And He'll take you in steps. I mean, you can take, for example, for us, you take it from we're going to have 5 to 7 people come into the house and we're going to try to make a difference. And we did. You made such a big difference and you developed the program at the house. But then it was so good when the Department of, the prisons thought you weren't going to work out, but you did. And you were so successful, they sent more. And they kept sending more until there was too many, until we had the problem with the neighbors. And then, literally, they were going to arrest you because you had too many people in the house because of a zone ordinance. Not because we were disturbing the neighborhood, not because we were causing a problem. We have 10 acres. Not very many houses have 10 acres that, you don't have it. But basically, the ordinance where we live said you couldn't have more than 3 unrelated people living in your house. If you think about that in Jeff State, if you have 3 roommates and they're all unrelated, they're in violation. So anyway, but I'm honored to be able to have the opportunity to represent and see something that's going to be a legacy that's going to live on way past you, me, Melinda, and so forth.
Oh, well, now, let's don't be killing me off. I'm ready to live right on for a long time. But, what's a little rest here and there, It was quite a, never, ever, ever did I intend to break any laws when we started the center. You can read all about this in the first book, Miss Brenda and the Loveladies. It's the one it shows on. I'm looking around and I can't find one.
They're sold out, honey. No.
I can't find one. But anyway, you need to read that book and you'll you'll be able to see exactly what
There's
we've
a portrait
done.
right there. Portrait.
No, that's another one.
Just a portrait.
Well, in case you hadn't read our books, I've got 3 books, 2 books, and then we've got Portrait of Hope. You need to get them and read them. Fascinating stories. And I'm writing a 3rd book now, and I'm very excited about it. And I'm also writing a devotional. So I would love for you to get those and read them. But if you really want to know about some, we talk every day about, well, God wants me to do this, but He can't really do it. God will choose someone, not anything special about me, but I just have a tenacity that if He called me today, then He will make a way. It may be 3 weeks, it may be a month.
We could talk about some of the miracles that created the center. Obviously there was the time in the house, then we developed and we were fortunate enough to be able to get the girls out of the house instead of going back to prison, because we had a deadline that if we didn't get them out of that house, they were all going back to prison. That's when, again, those stepping stones, I tell you that God takes you. You love the women, and when you see that they're going to go back to something that you started or God started, you step up another level. So we put them in every single house that we knew that was a rental house, every single house that we were renting to somebody else, including Melinda's house, everything outside of that realm, just to find the center. And then we found the center. But one miracle that's not in the book, in the center, that I think everybody should really understand, because many, many times you would say, God's going to give us this building. God's going to give us this building.
Oh, I was determined.
I mean, I know I believed in miracles. You believe in miracles, and and Lovelady is a miracle. But you would always tell me God's good. Well, Medical Center East wasn't so big about giving us the building. That's who we bought it from. They were good people. But 2 seconds to talk about that. Those that don't know it, we went from, we didn't know how we're going to pay for the building. We took everything we had in our savings to make a deposit on the contract. That I went to the board of directors from Medical Center East, presented the contract. But why that happened, Katrina happened. We had that, they were looking for a place. So FEMA called Medical Center East and said, look, we understand you have an empty building. We might like to lease it from you for a minute. And basically Medical Center East said, we can't lease it to you because it's under contract. Now, nobody knew how we were going to pay for the contract. We didn't know. We just knew we were going to do it. They didn't know. They weren't comfortable with it, but it was under contract because we put a deposit. So they couldn't do it. Well, because of that knowledge, we talked to FEMA. We set up a situation that they would lease it from us, and the 40 women that we had would be able to remain on the 4th floor of that building separate from everybody else. And you were brilliant. You said, we want to do the cooking and we want to do the housekeeping. Well, they didn't go for the cooking, which I'm kind of glad they didn't, because that would have been a little more technical. We put them on the 4th floor, we separated everything, and we got paid with the 40 living there to do the housekeeping for FEMA. And that brought in revenue. I think that brought in about $30,000 a
Well,
month.
actually, all of this is in the book. Now I'm I'm going to need a book report from this man.
No, not all the details.
Evidently,
No, not all the details. And the part that I'm talking about yet, I haven't got to. I started understanding that you said it was going to be paid for. Over and over again, you said it would be paid for. Well, sure enough, FEMA, the only reason the contract happened is because we were able to take the contract that FEMA had and say, look, here's how we're going to pay for it. So I sat in front of the board of directors. There was like about 9 of them laying around the table, and we're at the end of the table, and we were just one thing on the agenda, obviously. And they said, well, we don't understand how you're even going to do this. And because of the contract with FEMA, we were able to show that we wouldn't be paying for it. FEMA would be paying directly to their bank account $100,000 every month. So the building would be paid off at the end of the contract. So they were like in shock, and they just said, okay, great, we want to get rid of this. So anyway, back to where I'm trying to say. So the contract was actually written up by their attorneys, not our attorneys, to be able to show that we were going to pay it directly to them and everything. When it came down to it, they left early. So we never paid, we owed $300,000 or $400,000 on that building because we could make, but FEMA left. They cut the contract early. Well, obviously we didn't have enough money to pay them $100,000 a month at the time, so we didn't. But we were doing a lot that they liked what was going on. Long story short, they couldn't foreclose on us for the building because God wrote that contract. And the attorneys from Medical Center East and St. Vincent's East, because St. Vincent's East bought them and was very upset that they couldn't do that. But because of the way the contract was written, it said that FEMA was going to pay for it, not us, or not the Lovelady Center. So they ended, like you said, from the very beginning, they ended up just saying, we're just going to give you the balance of the building.
Well, actually, I don't go into, I'm not as detailed a person as Jeff is, but actually, when we went to them, the first time I ever called them, I said, maybe you'll just give us the building. And they just thought that was the funniest thing. And, I had just, ain't she cute? And so years later, and it was just this year, it was the earlier part of this year, they called and said, we want to meet with you. And I thought, oh, my goodness, they're going to call this. And I said, okay. So we go up there. Right after we moved in, I got to be best friends with one of the sisters. And I love her so much. Well, she and I got to be friends. And one day she came to me and told me that they were going to give us the building. And I was so excited. And they never came back. And then this year, the first part of the building, when it was changing ownership and all, they were having to clean up things. There was all kinds of reasons why I didn't ask for the contract right then to be stamped paid in full. But what happened is we went up there, and I had several people with me, and we went up there and in the big boardroom, and the most miraculous thing they said, I was sitting there and I was thinking, what in the world am I going to say? And I knew everybody was depending on me. And in moments like that, it's best just to shut up. And it's best just to let God. I sat there and I turned to a page in the book where it talked about Sister Diana coming in, and it talked about what she said. And that book was written like 8 years before I was in the meeting at St. Vincent, who have been the most gracious, unbelievable, wonderful people to us. I am so thankful for them. They are great. And she said, what do you have to say about this, Brenda? And I said, well, let me just show you what I had to say and Sister Diana had to say. And I showed them that, and they all just died laughing and said, it's here. And they gave us the building. So thanks to St. Vincent's, and I guess it's UAB now, I'm not sure how it changes, but thanks to them, we have that big old wonderful building. Now I'm telling you, if I could put my arms around it and love on it, I would. I am so thankful. I feel like that. I really feel like God has put angels all around that building. I know some of you are saying, boy, she is a kook. Whatever. I feel like that God put angels around that building. And it has been the most wonderful journey. When there was a time when I thought this is never going to happen. And that building just has hung in there. And now people are doing so much to help us. We have a new roof, and we have windows, and we have air conditioning.
It's not the same building it was when I was working there.
No.
I mean,
it is
I never would have
wonderful.
thought. Remember when we were doing Caraway, and we were going to move to Caraway, and we had all those problems that nobody would let us, even though we're going to let the city of Birmingham, Jefferson County, everybody do their own things in the buildings. But everything, apparently, God wanted us to redevelop that building, that spot, that original spot, because it's now, there's been hundreds of thousands of dollars into that building now.
Oh, and it's
Maybe
so
$1 million
wonderful.
from
I
what
mean,
they're
it
going.
is so wonderful. I don't know what it is about me, but instead of having
I don't
new
either.
instead of having new things, I like to take old things that I love history, and I love the history of the building. The building started out being a dormitory for Howard College, which is now Sanford University, and it was built originally as a dormitory for women. Is that not awesome? And now, I just think that is great.
And we used that when the zoning came into play.
Yeah.
Because everything was an add-on from the original old part of the building being a women's dorm, which is what we were asking it to be in the first place. Then they added it on to the hospital. Then they had the senior care center there was the last thing that was there. Well, that was a living facility too. But still, they said we couldn't do it for the zoning.
You can tell Jeff concentrates on what went wrong, and I concentrate on what went right. That's who I am.
Well-
but there have been obstacles that looked like there's no way to get overcome
In all
them.
fairness, honey, that whenever we were starting the program and there was any obstacles that had initials on it, whether it was the health department, whether it was the zoning, whatever it was, whenever somebody came to the door, you and Melinda would explain to me again that I was in operations, you were in charge of the program. And so I had to go and walk everybody in operations and deal with all that stuff. And so it takes everybody to make this, and it takes God to put his hand over it all.
It takes all kinds of people, that's for sure. And I can tell you right now, I have seen God pull us out of more mire, more more quicksand, and put us on a solid rock. And I would like, are you serious? How'd you do that? You know, I mean, we start talking about the miracles that I've seen come through on just the building part of this, and I would like, wow. I mean, we just,
Well,
I am so honored to serve him, and I am so thankful for the building, for the program. Not many people get to do
the
that.
big thing to me at this point in time of being 20 years, is that what it is for the now?
20 years.
And we had the big celebration of graduates that came from all over back this last couple, 2 weeks ago. But to me, the biggest thing that to overcome wasn't the building, it wasn't anything about that. It wasn't the people, it wasn't the program. It was the acceptance of everybody else. The acceptance of Birmingham, the acceptance of Jefferson County, the acceptance. Now when we look at a grant or something like that, they know who Lovelady Center is. They know the good works. They know it's faith-based, but they still consider being part of the solution, not the problem.
Well, let me tell you,
It's huge.
it is, I look back on it and I cannot even fault anybody, because I think about when people come to me right now and they start talking about what they want to do, I'll look at them and I think, you just have no idea. You can't do that, blah, 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 blah. And then I think about, that's what people thought of me. And that's why, you know, how can I fault this wonderful city and the wonderful people down there that have these great jobs, and they're responsible for all of this. And I don't even get upset with them, because I think, I would have thought I was crazy too. I would have thought that. I really would have. I was talking about it with a man that had gone down there with me one time. It's in the book. You go and we get down there and everything is turning around against us. And he left, and when we walked out, he said, we just had a bloodbath. He said, we have just been hammered. And I said, yeah. And the other night we were at an awards meeting where Melinda got this wonderful award. The mayor was there and all these people, and it was great.
The Vulcan Service
And I'm
Award.
sitting there thinking, he looked at me and he said, 20 years. It seems like it's so long, but the way it is now compared to how it was, I cannot believe it. He said, look what God has done. Listen, you couldn't even mention my name in a room because they thought I was nuts. And now then, people just are wonderful to us. We get grants, we get so much from all these wonderful agencies.
I mean,
And I am so thankful to you
we
guys.
had a hard time getting support from Birmingham for grants for money. We had a hard time getting from Jefferson County, and I won't get into all the details because it shouldn't be. But now we're getting grants from other counties in the state. because we take on their girls, we take on their recovery, and they realize that we're a solution for their community. We couldn't get a grant from the city. Now we're getting it from the state. We're getting it from the individual counties. It's the transition is amazing.
It is. I'm just extremely. I'm talking extremely thankful, and thankful to all of these people. One of the things that Jeff was very instrumental in the beginning, besides the building and all this stuff, one of the things he was so instrumental in is most of our women have had, well, I don't want to say women get in trouble because of men, but you guys, a lot of the women get in trouble because of men. And so a lot of the problem was how women looked at the men. A lot of the women are in prison because of their
They took the rap.
boyfriend.
They took the
It's
rap.
because of themselves, but they had some direction, and women seem to fall prey to the guys. And so what happens is that they hadn't been around any good men, any godly men. And in the beginning, Jeff was so good with the women. They call him Pops. They said they couldn't understand the difference, and then they began to learn. And I noticed at the reunion they were still calling him Pops, and they were still giving him big old daddy hugs and stuff like that. It's because they felt safe, and that was very instrumental in the beginning.
They had been used and abused by males, and sometimes from childbirth, sometimes from being older, and they didn't know that there was any existence, that there was people out there that were different, especially males. And I'm glad that they can see a lot of them now have married, have children that were saying that, and have been very successful. Managers, big wigs and big hotel chains with their children that they put through college. I mean, and those are originals. So I'm glad that they were able to break that, if you want to call it generational curse or whatever that curse was.
In the beginning, Jeff was at the beach all the time, and I had promised him I'll be there every weekend. I really believed it. I believed that I would just fly in and do a little of this and do a little of that, and then I'd leave it in somebody's care and I'd leave. I didn't have any idea, and it's in the book, how life was going to turn out for me. I didn't have any idea that I was going to end up being there all the time. This is really going down memory lane for me, because I'm thinking about all the things that I went through, and he had to go through because of it, and me trying to, y'all were talking about candle burning at both ends. I had the candle burning at both ends from the side, from the four on each side, and it's round, so I don't know how many sides that is, but I am telling you, it was a crazy time. And it was wild.
Well, it's kind of like the steps again, because when we first started out, obviously at the house, you literally stopped working. Not working. You were working for the house, which wasn't paying you anything.
That's true.
It was costing money. We bought a van and so forth. I was trying to send some money up and funding because I was flipping some houses and doing some stuff. But at a certain point in time, like I said, baby steps, I knew that when we moved into the center, I was going to have to be there, because you knew how to make a great program. You knew how to help the women, but we were broke.
Yes,
And I had to manage some of that. I had to know where the money was going instead of just having it, because we wouldn't have made it through the house. I mean, it was an expensive process,
Very expensive process.
but it was
And
worth it.
if I'd asked too many times, well, what about this? What about that? We probably wouldn't have done it. I mean, sometimes, Martin Luther King says, if you are going up a staircase in the dark, you just have to put one foot on the next stair and go up, and you have to have faith that there is a complete staircase, or else you would just fall down. And that is, when I listened to him give that speech, I thought, boy, can I relate to that one. Just taking a step. God calls it step out in faith, or that's what we say.
I
And
remember the biggest step that he took on me.
Yes.
It was when I could live with the center, and with the house and support it. And then there's the rental properties, whatever. It's just money. But when we went to look at the building it's in, and we walked in the door, and we had to talk to the security guard, the German security guard that was there in the vacant, and we came there to get the keys, not for that building, but for the building on the corner,
A decent
which
sized
which
building.
I was comfortable with, because I knew we could do about 100, because it had a down level, 100 people. So this is the steps God takes you. But we never went and looked at other buildings. We walked in there, and you looked at me and you said, "This is the place. This is it." And my whole everything sunk down, because I was not ready for a city block long venture, because I thought I was getting stretched and getting stretched and getting stretched. And that didn't make any sense. And I know sense wasn't have anything to do with it. But you stayed there, and if you remember, I looked you in the eyes and I said, "Is this what God told you?" And you said, "This is the place God told me." I said, I stepped back. I said, "Are you sure?" Because I wanted to double check this. And you said yes. And looking in your eyes, just like a little, and you said that, and I said, "Okay."
It wasn't just Jeff. Melinda was there. Melinda said, "Mom, I love you so much." She said, "But I think you've lost your mind." I said, I know it looks like it, but I said, "I promised you I hadn't." And Matthew said, "Mother, what are you thinking?" And you guys, I don't know what I was thinking. I just knew in my heart that God had a better life for thousands of women. And I thought, well, maybe somebody else could do this, because I really don't have the resources. I really don't
That's
have
where
what
it started
takes.
out. Somebody else doing this. Remember at the house when everybody quit the first day? Somebody else was going to do it. That's why you were going to be able to come see me down south, where we could have a life and then take care of the program and all these different things. But the very first day, everybody quit when they saw what was coming across the board through the
They did.
threshold of that house.
They did. People before we started the program, I had it laid out. I had everything laid out. I had the best plan you can ever imagine. I had a house mother, a driver. I had everything it took, and I had it laid out. The first day when they sent the women from
Tutwiler.
Tutwiler, and I thought I was going to get a few bad check writers, and in walked manslaughter, first degree this, first degree that. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm so glad we've got all this planned out. And I want you to know every single person left that day. And then it came time, and Melinda had to go home because she had little children. And there I stood. And I said, oh, dear God, what in the world happened? And let me tell you, you're going to face that. You are going to face that. In life, there's always going to be a time when you say, I just don't think I can. We've got 1 minute.
Okay.
What do you have to say in 1 minute to these people besides your wife is a nut?
Well, let's spend about 1 minute talking about my wife being a nut. How's that? Let me tell you something. I would rather be married to somebody that has a vision that makes a difference for everybody than anything else.
Hey, we're going to close it on that one because we never, and make sure you got that on tape. I'll never hear that again, because vision I'm long on, not on anything else. But you have brought up a lot of things today that just have me in the gut today. But you know what? It's good that I thought of it. So I really, really am thankful that you came on here today. And we're going to have you on some more, and we'll talk about different aspects of it. But right now, I just want to thank everybody for being with me and loving me. Thank you. Bye.